thank you everyone for coming today to this session. My name is Mark Reynolds. I am the National Director of Education for SABIAN. I am so honored to be here to preside over this clinic. I can't say enough about Chelsea and the work that she has done in marching cymbal education over the last decade. It's been absolutely phenomenal. They have a lot of material to go through. Some of the stuff that I saw earlier during the sound check is going to blow your mind. There's going to be a lot of great information. So without further ado, I'm going to let them get on to it. Thank you so much for coming. This is Chelsea Levine, Alex Huizen, and the Rhythm X Plateline.
Let's bring up the men of the hour to the stage. Thank you all for coming. Today our presentation is entitled Advanced Marching Cymbals. This is what's possible. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, I'll introduce myself and to all my friends that are up here on stage. My name is Chelsea Levine. I teach the Rhythm X Plateline. I am what some refer to as a cymbal enthusiast. I've been involved in this activity, which feels like forever. I've marched 11 independent seasons of DCI and WGI, including right here with Rhythm X. I've been teaching drum corps for a very, very long time as well. I'll be helping reinstate the Crossman cymbal line here with Bradley Rivera this summer. Cymbals have brought me all over the world, to remote villages in Lithuania, all the way to Melbourne, Australia, most recently. Very, very passionate about this instrument. I am the CEO and founder of Seavine, which is the name you see on these shirts, which makes me Mrs. Seavine. That's Chelsea Levine, in case you didn't know. There it is. So we manufacture products for cymbal players and hornline performers as well. These gloves and straps and pads that you guys are seeing up here, among some other resources and products that we'll talk about later. We do that all through the Seavine umbrella. The sales of those products fund a scholarship. It's called the Cymbal Scholarship. We've given away over $30,000 to DCI and WGI cymbal players since 2012. Thank you. We actually have some cymbal scholarship recipients up on the stage. Raise your hand if you've won the cymbal scholarship before. Bradley and Nick. Bradley a few times. Nick just this past season. Give him a hand. I'm also the founder of Seavine Cymbal Education, which we're going to give you a nice little deep dive into a little bit later. And in my free time, I actually don't have any free time at all. I'm here. I teach cymbals, I hang out, and run Seavine. So let me introduce you to my friend Alex Scoot Huizen.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Huizen, better known as Scoot at Rhythm X. I'm originally from Jenison, Michigan, and currently live in Cincinnati. I taught marched 6 independent seasons in DCI and WGI. And then I taught 3 seasons in DCI. Taught X since 2020. And when I was a sophomore in high school, that was my first experience coming here to PASIC. It was with my grandpa, actually. And then performed in 2017 with the RXP, and now just being here and speaking to all of you today, it's come full circle. So it's an unbelievable experience. I can't believe I'm doing this right now. So,
yes, thank you, Scoot. And then, excuse me, the boys. This is the 2022 Rhythm X Plateline. They come from all over the place: Virginia, Illinois, South Carolina, Missouri, New Jersey. They all lived in those respective places before coming to Rhythm X. They changed their whole life to be in Dayton, Ohio on the weekends, and we're very, very appreciative of them. They're super talented. You guys will get to see that here soon, and they're 5 of my favorite students ever. So without further ado, that's us. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what we're going to be telling you all about today. So if you're here, we would like to assume that you are at least mildly interested in marching cymbals. Maybe you're like, oh, your cymbals are the coolest, or you're like, well, I have to teach a cymbal line or facilitate one, and I really have no idea what I'm doing. So hopefully you leave here with some inspiration on sort of what to do next. This session is for not just performers, but instructors, designers, adjudicators, you name it. Anybody who has any sort of interaction with a cymbal line, this clinic is for you. And we want to show you that having a cymbal line is your secret weapon. Not just for WGI, but for DCI, for marching band. It's an amazing, amazing instrument, and we're so excited to demonstrate that for you. So that's kind of what we're going to be up to. What's next? We're going to have technique, warming up with the battery, some show segments, and then we're going to leave you with a ton of resources so that you can continue your cymbal education after today. So, cymbals, they are a beautiful instrument. I would argue that they are the perfect mix of physicality, musicality, and creativity. What we do within a season is very, very collaborative, and it's very unique to any marching cymbals. There's an extreme range of what you can do both musically and visually, how you move your cymbals, how you play your cymbals, and we want to kind of show you what that range looks like so that once you get past the basics, this is what you're able to accomplish. It's not just playing crashes and flipping up and down. There is a ton more to it, and we genuinely believe that it will yield points on the judges' sheets for you, opportunities for the audience to feel involved and to clap and to understand exactly what's going on. So, all that to say, we're going to dive into just a little bit of technique for you so you guys can see what we do to really get our season started. When it comes to technique, we take a very, very simplified approach. We try and find ways that from one technique to another, so even just flipping or crashing, or crashes and crash chokes, or crash chokes and tap chokes, that we find similarities, we find symmetry throughout all of these elements so that we can learn and perfect it as quickly as possible. We want to do that because, I think technique is fun, but there's just a lot more to marching cymbals from there. So we want to get through the technique as quickly as possible, and this is sort of our approach to that. So the first chunk that we're going to do for you is called Flip Exercise 2. This goes through a set position, gumption, vertical, gumption, and down. And we're going to move through these positions over 3 counts, 2 counts, fast flips, and so on. So let's check that out. So that's flip exercise 2. You guys probably noticed that as the exercise went on, we had less and less counts to go from one point to another. This exercise works on not just accuracy of positions, but the rotation and the pathway to get from point A to point B. So as it progresses, you have less time to think about the how, and that's why we sort of isolate this and have slower and more counts to kind of get through it. So from here, Scoot's going to take over, and he's going to tell you a little bit about our crash choke breakdown.
Yes, so the next thing we have is our gumption crash choke breakdown. And mainly in this exercise, we're focusing on our prep position, making sure that's a nice mirrored with the cymbals. And it sets us up for our contact point, which is 2 inches inside the far edge of the left cymbal. And over time, just as we play the cymbals, as we get that impact, we're slowing the choke down and getting a shorter sound every time. So.
So that's our crash choke breakdown. I mentioned earlier that we try and find definitions that we use throughout, and Scoot kind of dabbled on that. He said that the contact point was 2 inches inside, and we use that point of measurement throughout a lot of our technique. So for example, when we're at a playing position, like gumption here in front of our bodies, the cymbals are 2 inches apart. When we're at vertical, they're 2 inches apart. When we're playing sort of a mezzo forte, forte tap, the contact point is 2 inches inside the cymbal. So they get very comfortable with kind of what that measurement is, because we're reinforcing it through a lot of our technique exercises and breakdowns. The last technique exercise we're going to show you is called the pyramid crash exercise. What this does is it shows the full dynamic range that we can play for crashes. So we're going to start at piano, and we're going to get all the way up to fortissimo. What you're going to see here is a difference in not just dynamics, but angles of attacks, and also just how we sort of approach the crash. So we will do a rep of pyramid crashes for you. So what you guys will probably notice with this crash exercise is that as it gets louder, we get bigger with our prep position specifically. And we take the same approach that you would take if you're teaching someone how to hit a drum. So if you're trying to play a piano tap on a snare drum, your stick height would be something like 3 inches. That's what we do here. We have what we call half preps, and then we're changing the velocity and the pressure that goes into that. Then when we get louder, up to like mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo, we do full preps. So we change that angle of attack as we need it. We also change the push through. You might have seen that they don't always push through. So at the piano crashes, there's no push through to kind of help with the cymbals to not project. And then kind of the same thing when we transition to mezzo forte, we are doing full preps, but we're not pushing through. And that kind of helps us exaggerate the dynamic range for the cymbals. So if you think that cymbals are just an impact instrument, hopefully you leave here kind of realizing that you can take advantage of that low end of the cymbal line. Next up, we are going to talk about the why and the how we warm up with the battery. I've changed my opinion on this over the years. I used to think that warming up with the battery didn't really benefit the cymbal line, that it just really exhausted us. But we've found a way over the years to adapt the battery warm-ups so that they genuinely benefit us. Without exception, we warm up with the battery. It's how we start the day. Not only does it help us musically and physically, getting our arms moving at 9 a.m. when rehearsal is going, but also helps socially because we enter the gym and everybody's setting up on stands, us too. We're stretching, we're talking, we're drinking coffee, and then we jump into some of our battery warm-ups. This exercise we're going to do is called accent tap double beat. The beats were written by Tim Jackson, who writes most of the packet for us. What we did with accent tap double beat, though, to make sure that it benefited us, there are some tricky rhythms in here, and some of those rhythms found themselves in the show and some of those splits as well. But we took this as an opportunity early season to start writing visuals. So we said, as a cymbal line, our first weekend together last October, we said, okay, what's some of the cool stuff that we're trying to get into the show? What are those release reloads? What are those juggles? What kind of splits are we trying to do? And we tried to put it in our warm-up packet as quickly as possible. And what that did was it enabled us to get a ton of reps on the things that ultimately would be judged finals night. So some of these visuals that are an accent tap double beat, you'll see little sprinklings of them in the X22 production, and we were able to start working on that in October before we ever had show music. So let's take a look at accent tap double beat. So what could have been a very stock battery exercise for us, some crashes, some crunches, some splits, we decided to jazz it up and make it what was really fun for us, and also made sure that it made sense with what the rest of the battery was playing as well. Just to kind of show you some of the range of what we can do with making sounds, but also how we move our cymbals, we're going to do kind of a bit of a freestyle with taps and tap chokes, and then just showing you what kind of the beginnings of what juggling is for a cymbal line. So there's 3 ways that you can play a visual, at least or perform a visual as it stands right now. The first one is on hand. Will you pick up your cymbal for me, Bradley? So that means that from the side profile, you'll see that his hand is just hooked. Go up to a gumption for me. His hand is just in his straps. We call these just, loaded visuals. Now, if he unhooks his thumb and the cymbal is just kind of dangling from the strap, we call that a release and reload, because what's happening is you're releasing your hand, specifically your thumb and your hand from the strap, but you're still hanging on to the strap. And then from there, we have juggles, which is where the hand is not through the strap whatsoever. You probably saw that when we started accent tap double beat, both cymbals were in one hand, and we eventually sort of kind of found our way back to the straps. So let's show you some cool different ways that you could play a tap. A standard tap, you would have your hands in the straps, you'd tap the cymbals. You could play them here, you could play them there. That is a textbook tap, or tap choke even. But these guys are going to show you a little bit of a different way to do those. So we'll just go down the line. Show us a tap or tap choke, Jaden. G. Okay, so 5 different ways. We probably could have come up with 500 more ways. The next thing they're going to do is show you any sort of juggle that they really want, and we'll do a couple of these for you because they're fun. Cool. You guys can cheer if you like it, yeah. And this is a good segue too, is that with these juggles, if the cymbals are going to go up in the air, there's obviously a chance that they might hit the ground, and that's part of the risk versus reward. When we practice this on our own, we have mats down to protect our cymbals. You hear that, Sabian? We take very good care of them. And until we're very confident, these things don't really make it into the show. So, and all these juggles that you saw here weren't in our show this past year either. So, speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about what our equation is for success. So, the equation is technical proficiency plus visual creativity equals box 5. We're very proud of this and our approach. I think it's pretty unique to Rhythm X. It is catching on with other cymbal lines that when we decide we're going to put a visual in the show, it has a true purpose, whether that's to line up with the score, which we'll dive in here shortly, that it goes with the theme. It's just not trickery to be trickery when we're putting together a production. So we make sure that what we're doing just generally makes sense. We don't want to be a distraction to the rest of the ensemble. If there's a snare break and everybody's backfield taking a knee, we're not going to do crazy juggles and wave our hands above the head just because we have some trick we want to display. We want to be very, very smart with how we do this. This is an approach that I would argue is going to start to be adapted more. This past March, I had the opportunity to be part of the WGI weekly continuing education sessions. That's a mouthful. And what I was able to do is speak to the WGI judges on how to properly adjudicate a cymbal line. So we talked about the range of our vocabulary from the basics all the way up to the advanced skills. I told them even what some of these juggles were and how to learn more about them, so that if they did see a cymbal line throwing their cymbal up in the air and playing a crash in time, that they would get rewarded not just for effect visual, but also in the music category for doing something that complicated. And we are honestly already sort of reaped the rewards of that towards the tail end of the season and started to hear more educated comments towards the cymbal line than maybe we historically have. So if you are facilitating a cymbal line, I can speak at least on behalf of WGI and obviously those judges, and there's probably some in this room right now, they judge elsewhere. Hopefully you'll start to see and incorporate that into your own production so that, you can get points. This is a competitive activity, and that's the whole goal. Perfect score is 100. That's what we're going for. All that to say, let's dive into the X22 production. Scoot is going to give you guys a little bit of an intro on what our show is about, and then we'll start doing some show chunks for you all.
So if you haven't seen the X22 show, it's titled Art-Shaped Box. And it was roughly about Kurt Cobain's artistic expressions through his paintings and his music. He struggled with fame and negative criticism received from his critics, and he's simply trying to express himself through those mediums. So some of the emotions that are clear in his performances are angst or annoyance. He's very carefree on stage, but he has this understanding of balance between what is simple and what is technical, playing his guitar and his vocals.
Cool. So if you got here within the first 100 or so people, you probably have a battery score from this next excerpt that we're going to do, if you want to take that out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to play this chunk for you here live on stage. There's not a lot of cymbal notes to follow along, as you can see. I think you can count on one hand how many there are. So I encourage you to watch them first, and then we'll dive into kind of why we chose this chunk. So this is basically E to G. So there is a ton of visual elements in there, and I'm going to tell you why. So this was an interesting chunk of the show because it's actually the bass break. Sorry, Russell Wharton, who's in here, because we were on the stage with the bass line, just kind of marching and hanging out behind them, and we had to find a way to contribute to that part of the show and make it better. You're welcome, bass drums. So we're going to play a show chunk up on the screen here to show you what this looked like in the drill. Okay, cool. So that's the chunk. Now let's take a look at the score. And I'm going to actually have Bradley demonstrate for us. If you want to pick up, and you can actually come in front of your stand. And we're going to mark through this excerpt of the show. So underneath the cymbal staff, I put some visual notes of the counts that we're trying to cling on to that line up with, at first, the snare break, and then eventually the bass break. So the very first thing we did is that we took a big old stomp on count 4 out of the prop, and you'll see that there's a huge shot from the snare line there. From there, we floated our foot up, and then we bring our cymbals up 1, 2, 3 in front of our face, and then 5, 6, 7 we move down, and you'll actually see that there's accents that land on 5 and 7 that we were trying to go with. From there, the right hand is going to go 8 through 11, and then the left hand is 10 to 11, so go ahead and do that. And if you look at the score from there, there's a nice accent on the last count of that bar from the snare break, and then that sort of ends on count 11, so that's where we wanted to complete it. Then we have a crash. Yep. And then we do this nice, cool rotation down to take a knee. And that went with the whole battery there, so we took that knee with them. It was kind of cool that we got to go up to go down. And then standing up, we had a spin, so that we wanted to bring our cymbals with us there to set us up to do something cool that you'll see soon. We're going to rest and roll from 2 to 3. And there actually were more bass notes at F that kind of changed just towards the end of the season that these lined up with, I promise. And then we rippled down the line, and that really went with what we were hearing from the bass line, and that's called the situation. So we did that down the line to go with those first initial bass runs, which was very, very effective. We held on 10. You'll see there's no big accents there. And then we're moving 11, 12, 13 to this position, and then holding 14, there's no accent there, and then we're moving 15, 16, there's some nice difficult bass beats there, and then we have the quarter note triplet for that nice vertical moment with crunches. Now check out that top bass run that you'll see. we wanted to emphasize that from a pitch perspective with our visual contribution. So go ahead and do that for us, Bradley. So it has this nice little upwards angle, and then it goes down, and so does the pitch of the bass drums. Those also go down. Then we have a nice rotation from count 4 to 9, and you can just kind of see the craziness that, that happens in the bass line. So that was a nice unison moment. Hold 10, move 11, and then choke 1. Oof. All right, so. That's a lot of numbers and a lot of bars, but all that to say is that we studied this. Sometimes they come up with ideas and they're like, oh, can we do that on 1, 2, 3, 4? Because this is just a cool thing we came up with. And it's like, hard no, because the accent is on count 3. So we have to stop on count 3. So we follow this religiously with almost no exception to that to make sure that we are genuinely contributing to the production. So now that you have a little bit more information on the how and the why and the when, I want you guys to watch them do this chunk one more time and listen to the bass parts and see if you can grab on to some of those accents and parts that we were picking up on to emphasize this part of the show. I will tell you that, at least from the effect visual tape, this is the part that we consistently got the most compliments from. We're very proud of that section because at first we really didn't know what to do, but we found a way to make it fun for us and cool for the audience. So this next chunk we're going to do, moving along, hopefully you can use that information as you follow these next show chunks, is the end of our opener. This had a lot of building momentum, and you'll kind of feel that throughout. So let's just go ahead and dive into this chunk. So that chunk just kind of felt really good for us because you probably heard some of those crazy front ensemble runs. And we wanted to find a way where we could feel like we were building momentum without repeating the same thing over and over. So there's a portion of this, for example, that we call the hot potato. And it's because they keep touching the cymbal and then recontacting to keep it going, to keep that momentum going. And that was just sort of a unique way to then be able to stop, hit a strong accent, and then play through to the end.
So this next chunk that we're about to do was at the very end of our second movement in the show. A couple key things to look for here. So we do a moving sizz to our shoulder. That's over 3 counts. We are also doing a plie, so that complements that move really well. Another thing is we're doing a whip kind of reload that traveled in the direction we were going, and just kind of motivates the guys to go in that direction, because that drill move was pretty big, so it just pushes them to get there. Another thing is this is a pretty full battery moment heavy part, and we're behind the bass drums again, so we had a chance to focus on our performance there and just our more straightforward technique, not doing so many visuals in that moment. Another thing is our body facing. We travel on the side, or to the side, which provided us a chance to do our vertical position, just reads really well from the front. So let's do it.
The next chunk we're going to do, we're actually going to have Bradley demonstrate this for us. So, beginning of every season, we always ask ourselves as a cymbal line, okay, what's the next big thing? What's going to be the thing that just sort of kind of blows people's minds this year? What approach, what is that element that we're trying to really wow people with? And for this season, we decided we want to find a way where we can just repeat something just over and over again. And that's what we ended up with here with the glizzy connoisseur, which is exactly what Bradley is. Bradley is our glizzy connoisseur. He can genuinely do this for just about forever. He's mastered this skill. We all did this in the show. I think his total number is up to, what, 200 and something? His glizzy connoisseur number is 236. So if anybody can beat that, then tag us on Instagram at Seavine Co. But seriously, we did this as sort of an add-on in the show. It really helped us build momentum. It led right into the last kind of push to the end of the show. It felt amazing. It looked very cool. Bradley was in the front just kind of getting to rock out with Kurt Cobain's vocals kind of blaring. So that's the glizzy connoisseur. Maybe cymbal players that are in here, if you have a visual that you can find a way to kind of do over and over and work that into your show, I think that it can be a very, very cool moment. Which actually leads us into our next segment, which was a solo segment for our boy Nick here. And as I said, we're kind of always on the prowl for something new. This is a text thread between Nick and I, screenshot genuinely, from Sunday, October 10th. That's 2021. He sends me the first video of what we refer to as octo arms, and he said, I thought you might find this to be cool. I told him he was wrong and that it was super lame. But I was kidding, of course, and he had already shown the boys, and they were already learning it. And we coined it octo arms back on October 10th. Immediately after receiving this video, I sent a text to Tim Jackson and Tim Fairbanks, and I said, hey, this is in our arsenal. Just kind of throwing it out there in case you want to make a moment for us in the show. We immediately got to work. Actually, all 5 of these guys can do it. By the end of October, we were able to all do it, which is pretty insane. As it ended up, it was a solo moment in the show, and Nick kind of held it down for us. So he's going to perform octo arms for you all. Why don't you come center stage here for us? Oh, yeah, and in case you were wondering, this was the applause-o-meter. I'm not going to stand in front of it. But octo arms was the loudest applause in history. That's super official statistics. It's way louder than the applause that you guys gave me after Mark introduced us, and any color guard show, even that PASIC Expo out there, and a Justin Bieber concert. So UD Arena went insane when Nick did octo arms this past winter. So he did 6 in the show, and today we're just going to see how many he can do. It might be 3. It might be more. We'll see. Let's do it. We can count with him too. We'll show you where the count starts. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. That's 10. I've seen this monster do like 25 before. It's crazy. It's wild. You can probably see just a taste of how much coordination that takes. That he's hitting the back of the cymbal with the back of his hand. It's rotating around. He's catching it. He's handing it off. He's grabbing the strap and doing a figure 8 motion, making sure it lands perfectly in the air for him to hit it with the back of his hand again and repeat. It is just an insane cymbal juggle. So. We have another performance rep for you, but before we jump into that, I want to leave you all with some resources because we can only teach you all so much in the span of 50 minutes. So I want to leave you guys with information to be successful after this. So first of all, you can go to seavine.co. Yeah, just hang out there, that's fine. Seavine.co, that's where you can pick up any of these products you guys see them wearing, the straps, the pads, the cymbal gloves. As I mentioned, all of that supports our scholarship. So if you buy something from the Seavine website, you're helping guys like this be able to march. Nick is still marching this winter as well. There's obviously hundreds of cymbal players that will be there. There's more than just straps and pads and gloves. There's cool shirts and whatnot too. If you go to the scholarship page, the WGI scholarship will be up soon. So if you facilitate an ensemble that has a cymbal line, independent level, A, open world, if you scroll down, you can see, keep going. All the people who ever won, keep going. Yeah, there's tons. These are like insanely talented cymbal studs right there. So that's products that fund scholarships. The next thing is our media library. We have hundreds and hundreds of lot videos up there. We have interviews. It's just kind of insane the amount of library, or how big the library is. We have a YouTube channel as well. Next up is Seavine Cymbal Education. So on the website, this was sort of a labor of love during 2020. I did this project because I just feel that education should be free when it comes to this. These resources to make a cymbal line be successful, because I understand the realities that not every school or not every independent group can have a cymbal tech, and so I wanted to give all that information here. There's over 50 videos on technique. That's not just how to tie your straps, but that's how to play the cymbals, the positions, the exercises. You'll see that there's audio files. They were playing to these audio files today. They are also for free on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on Apple Music, wherever you stream music. You can get these tracks and play to them. They're at all different tempos. These were all written by Brian Harmson, so if he's a friend of yours and you like the beats, you should tell him and subscribe. And then lastly, the next element of Seavine Cymbal Education is this book here. This was also very much a labor of love. It is 125 pages. In here, there are visual breakdowns. There's sheet music that was notated by Jaden here on the end for us. You can also buy our exercise packet. Bradley is also the model in all of the videos. He's the demonstrator. He's in every page of this book as well. So if you like him, then you might like this book too. There's a QR code, and that links you directly to the corresponding video that's on the website. So this can be picked up exclusively this weekend at the Steve Weiss booth here at PASIC, or directly on our website, but I think we all like instant gratification, so if you walk about 100 yards that way, you can pick this up too. So I think that is a lot of resources. Yeah, hopefully that sets you up for success beyond this clinic. This last chunk we're going to do before we wrap up, I have some thank yous, and we'll open up the floor to some questions if any of you guys have any before we get going. This is one of our favorite chunks of the show. It's the Hey Wait section of the X22 production. You're going to hear them singing / yelling some Kurt Cobain lyrics. They're going ham. This was one of those points of the show where they could just let themselves be free. I think this is one of David's strengths. Actually, I think he came up with these first few crashes where you get to swing them around and hit them as hard as possible, because that's honestly what the show called for. So this is the closer chunk of Art-Shaped Box. What? We loved that chunk. It never got old. Yeah, that's a good one. We have time for about 2 questions, and then before everyone leaves, I do just have a few thank yous that I'd love as many people to hear as possible. So if anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand. We got one down here in the front.
So I have a very old-fashioned band director that does not believe in the element of visual that cymbal lines can produce. So how do I explain to him that we need a cymbal line, while also dismantling his belief that visuals like this are necessary?
Okay, so it's basically, how do you convince your band director that you should have a cymbal line? Well, tell them there's tons of resources out there available. This clinic is being recorded. You can send that to them. Hopefully you can take the information that you learned here and say, like, look, this is a valid way to be incorporated into a marching ensemble. It adds a ton of value. It's the only instrument that can contribute in such a big way, both musically and visually. We're on all the tapes: visual effect, visual, music effect, almost equally. I'd say we favor a little bit of the visual effect, and we're still proud of that too, but we also get the comments on the music tape for some of the denser passages that we play. We didn't do those today, but they do exist. Yeah, one more.
So you talked a lot about incorporating your visuals into the music
Yep.
aspect. How does the drill, like where you're moving on the floor, what sort of effect does that have combined with the music when you're putting visuals to all that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And if we could have shown a video segment for everything, we certainly would. And Scoot kind of touched on that where, like, for example, we use ripples to motivate a direction change or to lead your eye somewhere as well. So, like, there was points in the show where we had a ripple, it led to something over here on the left side of the floor, and then that motivated the next drill move. So we very much take that into account when we're putting together our production. Cool. Well, let me wrap this up with some thank yous. If you have any follow-up questions, you can come hang out and talk to us afterwards. First, I want to thank PAS for this opportunity. I think we're the second cymbal clinic to ever be at PAS, and Rhythm X was the first one as well. We're very appreciative. This is a huge crowd. It's a huge room. It's the biggest stage we've ever performed on here at PASIC. We're so appreciative of that. I want to give a shout out to my friend Russell Wharton. He cut up all these audio tracks for us for the show chunks, and he spent a lot of time and patience with me to do that, so thank you. I want to thank my husband, Tomas. He's back there. in the Seavine sweater, always representing, but he designs basically everything for us. These shirts, the website, the graphics, including the applause meter today that you guys got a good laugh at. So we appreciate him for making us look good in the ways that we can't. Next, Sabian and Mark Reynolds at Sabian. I don't even know where to start. He got us new plates for this. He makes us sound and look great all season long. He pops in, he calls, he emails. He's a huge part of our support system and our recipe for success, and we could not do what we do without Mark and the Sabian team. I'd also like to thank everyone who's never cut a cymbal line before. But in all seriousness, we believe that this is a worthwhile medium to be part of the marching arts. So I also want to thank everyone who's ever created a stage or an environment that a cymbal line felt like they could thrive and perform and do what they were passionate about. Some of my biggest supporters are in this room right now, and same with these guys up here. And if you find yourself in an educator role, please, 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 we can't do this by ourselves. We try and have the biggest influence that we can, but we need everybody's help to make sure that we are validated and have the opportunity to continue on in the marching arts in the way that we dream of. Not just being there and existing, but having the notes and the drill and the opportunity. Lastly, no, not lastly, I'm sorry. Rhythm X, they do create that stage for us. We get to do our thing, and we're so thankful of that we don't just have to carry props around on the floor all season. They really help us do what we want to do. We have some admin here, Abby Hermish, who's really makes Rhythm X go around, so we're very thankful for her as well. Thank you all for attending. This is so humbling for us. It's amazing. And the last few people I want to thank is, first of all, my right-hand man, Scoot here. He deserves a round of applause himself. He's one of my best friends. We collaborate on this. This wouldn't be possible without him. Where he answers the phone, God, he has to continue to do this with me. I love the guy. He's super talented. Hire him for all your cymbal and playground designing needs. That's his professional life. It's amazing. And lastly, I have to thank these 5 incredible cymbal players up here. As soon as I set the X22 line, I knew I wanted to come to PASIC because these 5 are some of the most special, talented, kind cymbal players to ever exist. They bent over backwards for each other, for this craft. They constantly practiced, they constantly supported each other. This guy flew in every single weekend from New Jersey to be at Rhythm X. He's doing that again this year from Albany, New York. He'll spend about $6 grand in flights this season. These guys picked him up from the airport at 11 p.m. and dropped him back off at 5 a.m. after an hour drive every single week this season. They never complained about it. There's learning curves. They support each other. They lift each other up. They really stuck together. If you need a cymbal tech, if you want to take private lessons, if you have a clinic you need to be taught, these are your guys. They are an asset. Hopefully you got a little taste of that. They could have run this whole clinic themselves. They are amazing. Humbled to have taught them. So thank you all so much. We appreciate you. And that's it for us. We'll be up here to answer questions, take pictures, and hang out for a bit. So have a great PASIC.